Welcome to Brief History Conspiracy.
This week, UFOs, the common flying saucer shape.
If you're new to our channel, please like, subscribe, hit that bell notification. It really does help us out. We've been talking a lot about Bob Lazar recently, and flying saucers, and Tic Tacs, and we've got all these videos, the Tic Tac, the Speedster, the gimbal video, and we've been starting to have a think about the technology of what we're actually talking about.
Yeah.
So Bob Lazar described as these flying saucers and how they were built. And one of the things I found really interesting is even back in 1989, 30 years ago, Bob was talking about wireless technology before we had wireless technology. I mean, unless you're thinking about Nikola Tesla, where he's trying to transmit energy wirelessly. Nobody else had thought about that until the last 10 years or so.
Well, no. Probably because the American government hid all of Tesla's research after he died, but yeah.
Yeah. But no one else thought about it. And now we do it. My phone charges wirelessly. He also talked about the craft structure and how it was. He described it at the time like it was like jet molded.
Yeah.
Something. But now he talks about, well, now it's actually more like it's 3D printed. And there's no seams in any of the structure. It's like it was grown, is one way.
Yeah. Well, at that time, the only comparison he could probably make was to injection molded plastic products that you could make that kind of object as one object with no seams and no joins, no nothing. Yeah. Obviously, technology moves on though, and today we now have 3D printers. 3D, like a growing effect as well with 3D printers, that you can have these new materials that sort of like make and replicate themselves and stuff, and nanomaterials that can repair themselves and stuff. And we're getting into almost like it was these sort of technologies were inspired by something. Do you ever remember DSV, Sequest DSV back in the day, the TV show? And it had the guy from Jaws in it, and Steven Spielberg presented it. That ship wasn't made out of metal; it was grown. I remember one episode where it got a virus and or something, and like the actual biomaterial was, I got a disease and it was breaking because of the material. But then as soon as they cured it, it grew back. And that is, but that's, I make that point is because those are the sort of materials we're actually starting to look at now. Yes.
But Bob was talking about that potentially 30 years ago. If you look at the Day the Earth Stood Still, that great sci-fi movie, just a couple of years after Roswell, the flying saucer there, no seams. The door just sort of like appeared from nowhere, sort of thing, and almost like somebody had seen something that we're now actually starting to think about as genuinely real technology now.
Almost so like Steven Spielberg might have been connected to somebody.
Well, a lot of his movies,
extra information.
Well, there you go.
No, who knows?
Encounters of the Third Kind, massive flying saucer. Right, we talk about David Favre and Chad Underwood, who were the pilots that saw the Tic Tac video, the Tic Tac UFO. We've also got the gimbal and the Speedster. The Speedster, to be honest with me, looks like a classic flying saucer. It's a glowing white light. Right? You also have this Tic Tac, which is another vehicle we see quite a lot. To me, what Bob describes as a flying saucer doesn't need to be that shape. That could be any shape and it wouldn't matter. And I mean that because, for one, it uses a gravitational field, right? So you got this element 115, antimatter power source. He says it creates a
anti-gravitational
heart-shaped field, didn't he? Called
Okay.
But it points downwards. You then create a gravitational field around that vehicle, and then all of a sudden, what's around you doesn't matter. One of the things they talk about is this vehicle being able to travel between air and water. You know, we see we have UFO and USOs, unidentified submerged object.
Yeah.
But one of the things credible people have seen, pilots, whatever else, a UFO traveling between water and air, like there's no difference.
With no change in velocity, like the medium has no effect on the propulsion system, which we know in common inertial propulsion systems like jets, rockets, etc., that it does have a significant effect travelling between air and water, because water is a lot denser medium than air.
It's about 30 times denser.
would also put out any of the ignition on any of the inertial propulsion systems that we currently use. Yet there's no change in velocity, and they're appearing to go through that medium the same as air, which would imply the propulsion system doesn't have any problem with the difference in the density of the medium.
What's around the vehicle doesn't affect it at all. He was talking about that this gravitational effect is so strong that these vehicles can actually be invisible. They can actually bend light. That's one of his experiments, is 115. He says that he showed his friends this experiment because he has a sample of 115 and he could bend a laser light across it, which is impossible in our day in physics. One of the questions I have then is, if these UFOs can bend light, how come we can see them? And that would make to me that the UFOs either have to go into like a low power mode when they're atmosphere, and when you go low power, obviously you don't bend light anymore, or they either don't care that we can see them or want us to see them.
One of the two. I suppose it depends on what you believe, doesn't it? It depends on you believe whether there's potentially more than one species visiting the Earth and monitoring us. If that's the case, then they might have different agendas if there is more than one different species. Some of them might have decided to stay out the way from us and not interfere and try and remain invisible where possible. But others may show their presence more willingly, perhaps. It might not just be the one.
I mean, Chad Underwood, who actually shot the Tic Tac video, Commander Fravar is the one that's done Joe Rogan or whatever, but he didn't actually shoot the video. It was this Chad guy. Only Americans are called Chad. But he actually said he described it as being, he felt like he was being watched. One of the things he also said was, I think this was Fravar though, he said the vehicle shot off when he was trying to chase it. But when he shot off, they shot off to where his aircraft was going next, almost as if they knew where he was going before he did. But this thing about them saying they feel like they're watching us, or that they were almost playing games with them, that they were sort of like, that they were trying to communicate something, or that they were trying to...
Yeah, so at the very least, the movements of the craft seem to be intelligently controlled and reacting to the movements of the military craft.
But if you look at the Tic Tac video, they were talking about this thing dropping in from the height of their radar. They were just dropping in from space, basically, and then just hovering. And the one video, they say we hovered in the same place for like 18 hours. Almost like they were waiting for someone to come and have a look. And they're showing themselves as well to military pilots, people that are qualified in identifying objects. Anybody that says to me that this Tic Tac video or something, or the Speedster video was a bird, and I'm saying, no, I'm sorry. Do you seriously think that military pilot has never seen a bloody bird before?
And can't outmaneuver a bird?
Yeah, exactly. You can hear it on the Speedster video. The guy is so excited they've been able to catch it on the FLIR system. He keeps trying to catch it, and it keeps getting away from him. Then he's like, "Whoa, I got it!" So then he starts tracking it. He is so happy. Do you really think that guy was so happy about catching a seagull? He wasn't.
On the tracking system, no, he wasn't. Was he? Let's
go back to the UFOs and how they might work. Then, right? Another thing they were talking about is incredible changes of velocity, but without any sonic booms. One of the Tic Tac videos was described as going from 0 to roughly 1,800 miles an hour, no sonic boom. Now that freaked the pilot out, because again, they're used to things like this, and to then see it not happen goes against everything they understand. When trained pilots are freaked out by this, I mean, I was thinking about one of the Tic Tac video with David Fravar. He talks about, he went down close and his wingman stayed up high at about 20,000 feet, looking down. So obviously he's got a much better field of view. Yep. Fravar lost the Tic Tac. Fravor lost the Tic Tac. But he said, but he's pretty close to it, so that's okay. The thing is, his wingman lost it as well. And that's not just losing the ability for your tracking system, or for you to the maneuverability. Say you're aiming your plane at the vehicle and it shoots off. You then can't keep up with it. That's one thing. That vehicle outsped the ability for him to turn his head, or to turn his head at 20,000 feet and to keep tracking of it. How fast was it going that it goes, where's it go? Where's it go? So I think that's just insane.
Yeah, of course, and there's other similar videos out there have been recorded by military pilots where, it'll be, I don't know, 6 miles out on his on his 3 o'clock, and then he blinked, or you know what I mean, and then he's 6 miles out at 9 o'clock.
Yeah, but then
he just travelled 12 miles instantaneously, right across
literally
my
in a blink.
position. Right.
Well,
okay.
But if you've got an anti-grav drive, right, one of the things Fravor and Bob Lazar, when they had a chat, discussed was time dilation. And he says when he's watching the Tic Tac video, he felt like, he says they described it as a ping pong ball in a cup, and if you shook it around, and that's almost how it looked like it was moving. But they wondered whether, if we're seeing it through this gravitational field, perhaps there was a time dilation effect going on, in that we're seeing it relative to our time, but actually the vehicle wasn't moving in the way it looked like it was moving, but relatively to us, it looked like it was jumping all over the place.
Yeah.
But really it is moving thing, but the time was getting dilated.
Quite possibly. It's an interesting...
Do you worry about the vehicle moving instantly from one point to another? Did it? Or did it just relatively to us?
Well, it's all to do with frames of reference, isn't it? And yes, Einstein's theory of classic and special relativity. It could just be from our reference point that's how it appeared, because it is capable of warping the fabric of space and time. And if you're warping the fabric of space and time, then time dilation is a real possibility.
It actually becomes a problem, time dilation, if you want to travel very quickly. If you watch Star Trek, every so often they'd have to adjust their the times when they got to somewhere. But actually, time dilation is an issue if you're traveling at closest. They said there's one way of actually creating a time machine, is you create a wormhole, right, which would be incredibly difficult to begin with, but theoretically possible. It requires the energy of a black hole to do, but you can do it. Now, to be fair, this is going to get a little complicated, but you have to imagine this man-made wormhole as like a tunnel through space and time. Like a piece of elastic, it can be stretched and pulled through space and time without ever breaking. You put one on a rocket and you leave one on Earth. You send the rocket out into the deep space at near speed of light, and then it comes back. Now, the rocket will suffer from time dilation, and now we've proven this. And we put an atomic clock on a jumbo jet and flew it around the Earth for a bit, and the atomic clock on the plane had lost about a nanosecond, which is not a lot, but from an atomic clock point of view, it's a lot. But the faster you go, the more the dilation. So the theory being that on Earth, 100 years will have gone by, but for the rocket, only 1 year will have gone by, because it was dilated time as it was traveling at high speeds. So you would bring the wormhole back, and you would have basically a 99-year difference. So then you could step through time. So on Earth, from 100 years, you could step through your wormhole and appear back on the rocket 99 years earlier. And that is one way you could create a time machine.
It actually allows you to travel backwards, because obviously you can travel forwards, because time dilation obviously just slows the passage of time moving forwards. Like in Interstellar, when he turns back to see his daughter as an old lady.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how the time dilation normally works. But I haven't heard that explanation before of how you would make time travel into the past.
Is the rocket? Are you traveling back in time, or is the rocket traveling forward in time? That's the way you have to sort of try to think about it. But the problem is you have this link. The problem for the pilot is he's been gone a year and 100 years has gone by. So from a traveling point of view, that's a problem.
He's not really travelled 99 years into the past, though, has he? It's still the same. He's really just travelled 1 year into the future, much more slowly.
Exactly.
So
that's a beautiful way of putting it.
He's not travelled back in time, has he? Really?
No, time has just slowed right down.
It's just him travelling forwards in time, much slower than he's used to travelling. Yeah.
But obviously, then he could step 99 years into the future, because he could step from the rocket to the Earth. So then you would have a 99-year time machine, and you can step backwards and forwards whenever you wanted, assuming you can build a wormhole. But like I said, that time dilation, though, for traveling through distance is a problem. Mm-hmm. You don't want to do it, which is why you want to warp or do transdimensional or something like that instead. That'd be easy.
How our alien scientist, when he looks into anti-gravity propulsion, how he explains that the anti-gravity propulsion drives work, and how Bob Lazar says. Bob Lazar says they're obviously using element 115, weren't they?
Yeah.
Which we can't have a stable isotope of as part of it. But weren't they also using antimatter as a fuel source?
An antimatter fuel source,
fuel source as well. Whereas, based on the work of Eugene Potnikov, a Russian scientist, they've managed to get an anti-gravitational effect by rotating superconductors, like in the lab, like, and basically getting them to levitate whilst they're rotating superconductor. But he says the way they work is the reason that flying saucers are all saucer shapes is there's a donut inside them. Yeah. That you have a super fluid, superconductive ferrofluid. Yeah. That you use. Yeah. Electromagnetic system to accelerate this superconductive superfluid, so flows with no resistance and conducts electricity with no resistance. Okay, so you can accelerate this ferrofluid, within this donut up to relativistic speeds, and once this reaches relativistic speeds, that's when it then creates a warp in the fabric of space-time, and basically creates a vortex, and the craft is then pulled through that vortex it creates. To the destination, because it basically, I think, it's like folding space and time.
That makes sense, though, doesn't it? Because isn't that basically how space-time works? If you get a mass and increase speed, you increase mass.
Yes.
This is why it takes more energy to push.
This is why you can't go faster than the speed of light under the normal systems of inertia, because as you approach the speed of light, your mass increases exponentially. And
until the point where you need infinite energy to push to the, you can't quite ever hit it yet.
Get to the speed of light because your mass would increase exponentially to infinity, and you never get there.
I mean, this is all Einstein stuff we're talking about, isn't it? But from a physics that we understand today, that makes more sense than what Bob was talking about, where it's this magical element that we don't know why it does that. But I mean, he talks about it being, that's the one things with 115, is when these scientists in CERN have created this for a few seconds, they've then started to try to describe what they think the element would be like, and what they describe is a super heavy element, which is what you'd need, isn't it? And then you bombard it with antimatter energy, and it creates this gravitational effect. But what you're talking about makes more sense from what we understand of physics. There's no magical element. That's science that we understand we could do. Do you know what I mean? It's like you said, we've already sort of started to sort of.
They even have some idea of what the chemical composition of this. It's going to need to be highly pressurized and super cooled in order for it to be superconductive and super fluid.
And these are materials we're trying to develop now, because we want superconductive materials, because they reckon that's the next big breakthrough, isn't it? Is because if you can have power cables that are superconductive, because we have a power station and we lose so much energy trying to push that power to the next person's house, because we lose it through heat and whatever. But if you've got superconductive energy, all of a sudden you need less energy in the first place, because you're not wasting any.
No, yes,
and that's the big next.
If superconductive materials, obviously, conduct with zero resistance, therefore you're losing
nothing.
They're 100% efficient in theory, I suppose, or maybe not quite in practice 100%, but.
I doubt you'll ever get to 100. But I mean, I think somebody told me the ones we run roughly about 6% efficient with a lot of our electrical systems. Yeah. We lose so much through heat.
Yeah.
The technology describes, though, doesn't require a saucer-shaped vehicle at all.
There doesn't seem to be anything that he's mentioned at all that means that the power source or the fuel source would require any kind of saucer-shaped craft.
Yeah, there's no aerodynamics involved. I mean, have you ever seen the Avro car? The Avro car, which is a man-made flying saucer, and they said that it's a nightmare. It was a bitch to fly. It just wanted to crash. But aerodynamically speaking, a flying saucer is great. You can push it in any direction. Well, because there's no. When you've got a plane, it wants to go that way. It's designed to go that way. A flying saucer, all the aerodynamics are designed that way. A flying saucer, it doesn't matter what perspective you're on, the cross section is the same sort of thing. So it's
to be highly symmetrical. called 360 degrees around the craft. They've got 360 degree symmetry that way. They might not have it vertically because they might have a slightly different top to the bottom node, perhaps. But
but huge aerodynamic advantages to that. That's why they tried to build the thing. They could actually, I don't understand why they haven't tried again now, to be honest, because with electronics the way it is, they could build it now. They could.
They were building some saucer-shaped craft, weren't they, back in the late 40s and the 50s, weren't they? But then suddenly it all just disappeared. They had some craft, weren't they? Like they had that hovercraft that was saucer-shaped that they could get like 10 meters off the ground or something and fly around. But they were doing that.
That's the Avro car.
That is the Avro, right? Okay.
But the thing was, it was such a bitch to fly because it didn't have modern avionics. With modern avionics today, the Typhoon, the British Eurofighter, is actually designed to be unstable, but then the computers keep it stable. It's designed to be unstable though, so when you turn, you can turn really quick because it wants to go. It wants to be unstable. The electronics keeps it. That's how stealth fighters can fly. Stealth planes are not a good aerodynamic shape, but with computers we can fly. So we could build them again. Anyway, for this technology though, aerodynamics not an issue. So why the hell are all of our UFOs saucer shaped?
Well, the majority of them seem to have been saucer shaped, apart from maybe the TR-3B, the triangular craft in recent years.
And to be fair, the Tic Tac videos as well, they're not shaped like that. Which what the technology Bob talks about though, any vehicle, it would work just as well. So,
but who's to say there may not be one method of anti-gravity propulsion? Who's to say that there aren't multiple methods of achieving the same outcome? It could well be possible.
It always just interests me that, again, like I say, these vehicles, they can block our radar, and they do regularly. Favor was talking about that they were actively blocking his radar, but sometimes we see him on radar, like they want us to. They could be invisible, but we see them quite a lot. Sometimes we see them as balls of light, which they must not be able to. It's almost like they're turning the full beams on, sort of thing, so we can see them. It seems to be on purpose.